Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English. In our today's video, we'll try to talk about a term that has been made popular since the yesterday's terrorist bombing incident which happened in Red Fort area in Delhi. This is the use of the word white collar terrorism. So what does this word white collar terrorism actually mean? That we'll try to understand, and what is the problem that the government is facing in dealing with this kind of terrorism. That is the subject of our today's discussion. And the notes that I will be using throughout the session, in case if you want to download them, you can go to this particular Telegram channel ATS Live and download them as soon as possible. And while you're at it downloading the notes, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button also. So let us start our today's discussion by understanding why have we taken up the word white collar terrorism for our today's discussion. Now this word itself has gained prominence due to recent rise in spate of terrorist activities. First of all, in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, you can understand 8 people were arrested, which included 2 doctors who were arrested for running a white collar terror ecosystem, which was aided by Pakistani based terror handlers. Similarly, in the Delhi NCR region, in the city of Faridabad, more than 2,900 kilograms of explosives were seized and 7 people were arrested for this activity. And you need to understand, all of them were doctors. So why are professionals like doctors, engineers, educators are involved in terrorist activities, and what kind of implication does it have on Indian society? What kind of implication does it have on anti-terrorist activities which are taken care of by the government? That we'll try to understand. For example, you may have heard about the name Sharjeel Imam. This was the person who threatened to cut off northeastern region from the rest of India. Now you'll be surprised to know Sharjeel Imam is none other than an IIT graduate. Not just from any IIT. IIT Bombay, he's computer science graduate from IIT Bombay, which was one of the most coveted seat when it comes to engineering field in India. So this brought my attention to the issue of why doctors, why prominent engineers are being radicalized to an extent that they are directly involved in terrorist activities. And this is what is called as white collar terrorism. So let us try to understand the meaning of this word. This white collar terrorism refers to an instance where there is an active involvement of educated professionals who are directly involved in respectable occupations like doctors, like engineers, like educators, in aiding and forwarding terrorist activities. This includes financing, this includes managing the logistics, undertaking propaganda so as to radicalize the youth, as well as involvement in operational planning and execution of terrorist activities. Now the word itself, white collar terrorism, combines 2 different forms of criminal activities. First is white collar criminals. Here are the people who are involved in non-violent activities, primarily deceit based offenses. And adding to that is the word terrorism, which signifies ideologically or politically motivated violence. So these 2 words have been combined to make what is called as white collar terrorism. That is terrorist activities when professional peoples are involved in them, right? So it signifies something very important. It signifies that there is an emergence of an elite intellectual layer within the terror networks, and these layers are often visible to the naked eye, but they are very critical in sustaining and executing the terrorist activity. So that is why we have taken up the issue of white collar terrorism in our today's video. Now, what makes any terrorist a white collar terrorist? There are certain characteristics they need to fulfill when we are going to use the word white collar terrorist for them. For example, they need to be professionally qualified people, and these are individuals who are involved in legitimate occupations as legitimate as being a doctor, being an engineer, being a professor in the college, and they use their technical expertise, their social standing in furthering terrorist activities, in managing finances, in managing logistics. And these are primarily the individuals who are not involved in combatant roles. These are not the people who will take guns in their hand and go shoot innocent people. These are the people who focus instead on more operational aspects of the terrorist activity, that is planning of terrorist activity, securing funding, conducting cyber operations, managing the communication so that they are not intercepted by the law enforcement authorities, and ensuring that the terrorist activities are fulfilled by ensuring or resilience of the supply chain. So these are the few characteristics. Additionally to that, you also need to understand these are people who operate as network of facilitators. First of all, they are quite professionally adept in their own profession. So when they are quite professionally adept in their own profession, they already have a higher social standing in their community. And when they have a higher social standing in their community, naturally whatever they say or will do will naturally influence the people in their surrounding. So they use this social standing as a network of legitimacy. They use it as a method of legitimacy to facilitate and ensure that the terrorist activities are professionally executed. So they provide finances, they provide digital support, they provide their expertise in cyber warfare. They also provide ideological backing to this issue so that they do not stay as an isolated actor in the state. Rather, they are very involved in the terrorist activities, staying hidden in plain sight. And therefore, their professional credential is what lends them their social cover. They actually participate in social activities, and since their front is of their professional work, people actually do not believe, or they are failing to identify them as terrorist handlers. So this is why, with the use of technology, with the use of digital platforms, they facilitate radicalization. They exacerbate the levels of radicalization and propagandization, which actually converts a normal or sane person into a potential terrorist. And they do so while using their terrorist and professional expertise in ensuring that the communication stays encrypted. Now, one of the biggest challenges that the terrorists face is that the challenges from intelligence agencies. But when they use encrypted communication, intelligence agencies for most period of time are unable to intercept their communication, and therefore they're able to successfully execute their terrorist activities. Similarly, these individuals are also very secure financially. So one of the key things that they do is that they secure funds and materials which are used in terrorist activity. So this is what makes them a white collar terrorist. So what is the implication it has on India's internal security? First of all, you need to understand, when radical elements who are embedded within the legitimate institutions, like they're working as doctors in the hospitals, professors in universities, or IT personnel in IT firms, these already are people hidden in plain sight. Now, using their financial strength, or when they are involved in successful jobs, they already have some money with them. So using this money, they can manage the funding of terrorist activities, and they can use their professional expertise in ensuring the resilience of supply chain, right from securing explosives to training people who would make eventually the bombs. So these are the people who secure financing. They ensure logistics networks stay efficient. Similarly, they are also directly involved in communication with cross-border handlers. Now, I need to understand, most of the terrorist activities that happen in India, it is not controlled from India. It is controlled from across the border in Pakistan by terror-related handlers. And these are the white-collar terrorists who are in constant contact with them. So this ensures that already it is quite difficult for security agencies to catch and prosecute these kind of people because they are hidden in plain sight. Similarly, you also need to understand, going forward, how terrorist activities have become more sophisticated. They have understood how the law enforcement agencies work, so they are made quite dynamic there, how they operate in daily life. So terror operations have become quite complex. They are well planned because professional people are planning them, and therefore it has become quite difficult to detect these kind of terrorist activities from happening. And what is more concerning is that these people into day-to-day their lives, they do not express their overt militant behavior because these are professionals. So the first impression that you get while interacting with them, that they are like normal professionals, like other doctors, but hidden in plain sight, they have quite radicalized outlook. They have a militant behavior which hides in plain sight. So that is why it is quite difficult for the law enforcement agencies, first of all, to identify these people, to tackle these people, and to prosecute these people. Now, what is the impact of this, or what are the different analytical dimensions of this issue that we need to understand? First of all, what is your conventional impression of a terrorist? Let us assume the most notorious terrorist in India, Ajmal Kasab, who was caught during the 26/11 terror attacks in Mumbai. Now, he was a person from a very poor social background. So naturally, you would understand that this person did not had any meaningful contribution he could have made in life. So it was quite easy to radicalize them. So there was a socio-economic angle which made you understand why this person actually picked up arms. Okay. But Counter to that, let me explain you about these white collar terrorists. Now, these are the white collar terrorists who actually are quite well to do in social life. So there is no socio-economic rationale for them to pick up violence. So this shows you, or this reflects you, the radicalization has now also impacted the educated, and it is the driving force of ideology, the driving force of political motivation. It is what is driving them. So they are actually driven by ideological conviction. They are driven by online propaganda. They are driven by their perceived grievance. One of the common instances that all of these people have developed, that they think that their community is in danger. So this is one of the driving force what promotes them to leave their day-to-day lives, to leave their professional jobs and get themselves involved in terrorist activities. So these are the two dimensions. Sociological angle, that is lack of explanation, when you could have said that this person is socioeconomically deprived, that is why he picked up arms. Another one is psychological dimension. What is actually the driving force? Money is not the driving force here. What is driving force? It is ideology, it is politics, it is perceived grievances which may have been embedded by them through lawful propaganda, right? Now, there are other two dimensions also that we need to understand. First is the technological factor. I told you these are professionals who are in well-to-do jobs. Some of these professionals hail from IT sector, from computer sector, right? And previously, these kind of people, although they might have been radicalized, but they were afraid to come in public and express their extremist ideology. But now internet, now technology has given them a layer of anonymity with them. So they can get themselves involved in these kind of terrorist activities, but hide in plain sight behind the screens of computer. So this technological factor has helped them mask their illicit activities. And this brings me to a governance problem. Now, we need to understand these people can be employed in normal private sector, can be employed in normal public sector jobs, right? So there needs an ethical oversight mechanism which needs to be developed so that sensitive professions are identified, which kind of professions are there which may involve radicalized people, and therefore institutions must also integrate counter radicalization frameworks within their normal day-to-day operations. So this is how, first of all, you would be able to identify the people who are radicalized, and then they try to remove them from their existing organization. So these are the multiple dimensions that we could have understood because of white collar terrorism. Now, what has been the government's usual response and legal framework in order to deal with this kind of terrorist activities? Now, we need to understand one of the key legislations that involves or that allows the government to catch and prosecute a terrorist is the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967, popularly called as UAPA. Now, this is the legal basis for arresting the people who facilitate terrorist activities, most likely the overground workers and disruptors within the professional domain. So, government usually relies on this kind of an act, and this also allows for preventive detention if government feels that this person in future might get themselves involved in the terrorist activities. Similarly, India also has an elite anti-terrorist investigating agency known as National Investigative Agency, which was set up after the terrorist attacks in Mumbai in 2008. And also it has a multi-agency center which basically coordinates the intelligence sharing across states when it comes to intelligence with respect to terrorist activities. And to deal with online radicalization, to identify online problem creators, there is a National Cyber Coordination Center which tracks online radicalization and effectively counters the digital propaganda. So this is the existing institutional setup used by Government of India to check the terrorist activities. But is it enough? The answer is no, because the answer actually was made visible yesterday, because these are the people, white collar terrorists actually was able to successfully execute a bombing in Delhi. Now this brings me to challenges. Why is government actually facing challenges in dealing with this white collar terrorism? First is that there is no legal definition of what makes a person a white collar terrorist. So it is just a term which is used in popular lexicon, but there is no mention of this term anywhere in the legislation. So for government, all of them is a terrorist. Overground worker is a terrorist. A person involved directly in killing of the innocent people, the combatant terrorists, are also the terrorists. So therefore, it is quite difficult legally to prosecute these people. Then comes difficulty in detecting the ideological radicalization. I told you these are the people who are involved in day-to-day professions like doctors, engineers, professors. So how would you identify these people among the different people who might also be working with them, right? So this brings to an attention of, or this brings to a possibility that you can create surveillance against them. You can use online surveillance, you can use human intelligence to identify these people. And this brings another issue. How would you balance the need for surveillance or need to ensure national security and with the same time ensure privacy of people or citizens of India? Because privacy is a fundamental right provided under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So if you are conducting mass surveillance, which may also include sometimes people who are not responsible for terrorist activity, this might violate their fundamental rights. So you have to ensure critical balance. Yes, surveillance of terrorist activities, surveillance of potential terrorists, potential problem creators is necessary, but we need to ensure that this surveillance also balances out the fundamental right of people who might be innocent. Also, there can be a potential for profiling or misuse of this provision. What if people from one community are highlighted in it? So there is a possibility that innocent people from that very community might be discriminated against, and this is one of the possibilities that government also need to ensure, that when they are conducting surveillance, it might also not lead to proactive profiling, which may also profile out the people who are innocent. So this is the challenge that government may face in real to life. Now, the biggest question is, what can government do now? The government, it can actually ensure early detection of people. And while they are able to detect these people, government can conduct programs to de-radicalize them. And here intelligence outputs or inputs from professional institutions and communities become very important, because it is quite difficult for intelligence agencies to identify these people who are hidden in plain sight. So who is the best possible person to identify them? It is people like you and I. We can do so, or we can be encouraged by the government to report any ideological extremism if we witness them in our workplaces, in our colleges and schools, right? And at the same time, there is also need for ethical vetting. There are positions in high technological access, there are positions in the military which allow people to have access to explosive, which allow people to have exclusive to high-tech equipments, which also can be misused for terrorist activity. So these positions can be identified. People with highest ethical integrity, people with highest moral integrity can only be the ones who are manning these positions. Then also comes the need of coordination between multiple law enforcement agencies. First of all, there are intelligence agency who provides us with the information. Then there are investigative agency who might investigate a crime. Then there are law and order agencies, including the police of state, who are responsible for implementing and ensuring the law and order. So you need all of these organizations to share different data that they might have with each other, so that it gives you a complete picture nationwide. And therefore, we need to integrate multiple aspects of counterterrorism, financial intelligence, cyber monitoring, and also combine them with human intelligence, because there is no substitute for a good human intelligence. And lastly, we also need to define facilitator roles. We need to define who is overground worker. We also need to determine what separates an overground worker from a white collar terrorist. And therefore, only by bringing clarity in law, we would be able to ensure that these people are caught and these people are subjected to justice in the court of law. Because after all, we are a country, we are not savages. We are people who follow rule of law. And only by using the law, we can successfully eliminate terrorism in India. So this is what we should do now. Now, before moving to the practice question, I have something very important I wanted to tell you. We are right now in the month of November. It is 11th November now as I record this video. You need to understand time is of very critical essence for each and every one of you. And if you take admissions in one of our courses, that is P2I resolution batches, the word P2I itself means from prelims to mains to interview, everything is covered. So if you take admission here, you do not have to worry anything about GS and CSAT. Everything will be covered here, including all the important subjects. And we have batches for students who are going to give exams in 2027 and in 2028. But if you want to take admission, there is one important thing that you need to remember. If you use this code ATS Live, you'll get maximum discounts on not on these courses, but also on optional subject. So learn to thrive with ATS Live. Okay. Now let us solve a question that appeared in the prelims of 2023. This actually remotely relates to our discussion today. According to the Constitution of India, the central government has a duty to protect states from internal disturbance. This is correct. It is given in Article 355 of the Indian Constitution. The second statement, the Constitution of India exempts the state from providing legal counsel to a person who has been held under preventive detention. Now, we covered Article 22 yesterday in a video that went live yesterday at 9 p.m. And in that article, I told you there are certain protections given to people who are arrested. But those similar protections are not provided to people who are kept under preventive detention. One of these protections that are not provided to people under preventive detention is right to seek a legal counsel even from a government. So therefore, second statement is right because they are exempted from by the state under Article 22. And third, according to POTA, that is Prevention of Terrorism Act, one of the special acts brought to deal with the menace of terrorism, that confession of the accused before police cannot be used as an evidence. Now, this would have been a correct statement if we are talking about usual laws like Criminal Procedure Code or like the Indian Penal Code. But this is a special law which allowed that in case if a terrorist confesses in front of a rank of police officer not below the rank of DSP, then it would be admissible in a court of law. So this is the incorrect statement, which would have been correct if this would have been a normal law. So third statement is incorrect, second and one is right, and therefore only two is your right answer. Now, before ending our today's discussion, there is another question that I'd want each and every one of you to write. This is a question that appeared in 2019. Read this question. Banning of Jamaat-e-Islami in Jammu and Kashmir brought the focus over the role of overground workers in assisting terrorist organizations. Examine the role played by on-ground workers in assisting terrorist organizations and discuss the measures to neutralize the influence of OGWs. So this basically is a kind of question very similar to the kind of discussion that we have today. Try to write this answer in 250 words and do let me know if you face any problem. And you can download the notes on this Telegram channel. If you have problems in locating the channel ATS Live, you can always scan this QR code. So this is all from my side. Stay safe, stay angry, use this anger for your preparation and get clear in the exam. So this is all from my side. Please have a very good night.